Sometimes life doesn't take pieces of you. It takes everything. Your money, your confidence, your peace. You wake up wondering if there's even a reason to keep going. But what if losing everything wasn't the end? What if it was the start of a version of you the world hasn't met yet? This story is not about quick success or magical comebacks. It's about a man who stood in the ashes of his old life and still chose to rebuild, one breath, one belief, one act of courage at a time. Because sometimes the fall isn't punishment, it's preparation. Ethan once owned a small printing shop on the edge of a noisy street. He wasn't rich, but he had dreams bigger than his pocket. His shop smelled of ink and ambition, the kind of smell that told stories of effort. On his desk sat a single-framed photo of him and his father smiling beside the shop's grand opening board. That photo was his symbol of hope, a reminder of promises made to his father before he passed. "I'll make this shop known one day." But years later, things changed. A new digital company opened nearby, and slowly his orders faded. One by one, customers stopped calling. The machines that once buzzed with life now sat silent, collecting dust and unpaid bills. And Ethan, he still looked at that photo every night, whispering, "I'm trying. Dad, I'm trying." The silence became unbearable. He would sit at his counter pretending to fix papers just so the emptiness didn't swallow him. The landlord knocked every week for rent. His friends stopped calling, not out of cruelty, but because they didn't know what to say. And when Ethan walked home each night through dimly lit streets, he felt like a failure walking inside a story that refused to end. Sleep stopped coming easily. He'd stare at the ceiling, questioning every choice, every dream, every word his father once spoke. He even thought about selling the shop, the last thing he had left. One morning, he stood outside the locked shutters, feeling tears rise. For the first time, he said aloud, "Maybe I wasn't meant to succeed." And as those words left his mouth, something inside him cracked, not just his spirit, but his sense of purpose. That evening, as the sun sank behind the city's old buildings, Ethan noticed an old man sketching quietly beside his closed shop. The man smiled and said, "You own this place, don't you?" "Used to hear those machines every morning." Ethan nodded weakly. "Not anymore. Everything's gone." The man looked up from his sketchpad. "Nothing's gone until you stop believing it can return," he said softly. Then he added, "Even a seed must be buried before it grows again." Those words hit deeper than Ethan expected. They weren't motivational, they were real, because buried was exactly how he felt. That night, for the first time in months, he didn't cry. He just sat on the shop floor, staring at that old photo and whispering, "Maybe it's not over. Maybe I just stopped watering the seed." The next morning, Ethan made a decision, not to reopen, not to succeed, but simply to try again. He began cleaning the shop. He oiled the old machines, wiped the dusty counters, and fixed the flickering light bulb that had annoyed him for months. Each small act became a message to himself. "I'm not done." At night, he started designing new templates, learning about digital printing online, writing down 3 lessons from each failure. Just like the old man's seed needed care before sprouting, days turned into weeks. No miracle came. But he noticed something new. The sound of effort returned. Even if orders were small, his spirit was growing again. He realized the shop didn't need saving first. He did. And every cleaned corner, every small sale, every smile felt like watering that buried seed back to life. One morning, Ethan received a call. A local school needed 100 certificates printed urgently. It wasn't a huge job, but when he hung up, he laughed through tears. As he printed those certificates, he realized something beautiful. It wasn't the money that healed him. It was the process, the slow, steady rebuilding of his belief. He remembered the old man's words. Even a seed must be buried before it grows again. He looked at his photo again and smiled. "Dad," he whispered, "maybe losing everything wasn't a curse. Maybe it was the only way to remember what truly matters." And that day, he wrote a small note on the shop wall. "Start small. Stay kind. Keep believing." It wasn't just a quote. It was his rebirth. Months later, the shop wasn't just alive again, it was different. Ethan began helping young designers learn printing and branding. His new motto spread across town: grow through what you go through. The once silent shop now echoed with laughter and dreams again. He no longer feared losing everything because he had learned that what truly builds you can't be taken away. Remember this: when you lose everything, you meet your real strength. When the world stops believing in you, believe anyway. Because faith, when consistent, becomes your comeback story. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who's struggling to start over. Because sometimes all a broken dream needs is one reminder that it's still alive. You're watching Global Rich Tales, where every fall becomes a foundation for a greater rise.